everybody! Here we are for our animals around the world, and today we're featuring the birds of Africa. So we're actually going to go through just a couple of different birds from Africa, and I just want to summarize them very quickly because we're only going to really focus on writing notes about one bird in particular, because I'd really like to focus today on putting those facts into sentences, which is such a huge part of being able to make a research report. So we're going to dive right into those birdies. The first bird is kind of going to be a transition from Europe to Africa. The white stork is actually a bird that migrates from Europe down to Africa.
Storks are birds. They are tall.
They are. They're not the tallest birds, but they are fairly tall birds.
Storks have long wings. They can fly far.
And they have to be able to fly far. If they're migrating all the way from Europe, all the way down to Africa.
Storks live in a group. The group is called a flock, like most birds.
Yep, a lot of birds live in a flock, don't they?
Storks build nests. The nests are so big.
Yep. And again, that's very typical of other birds too, isn't it? Most birds will build a nest.
It is spring. Storks lay eggs. The eggs are in the nest.
Right, and so they lay their eggs in Africa. They actually breed in Europe, but they'll come down to Africa to actually lay their eggs.
The eggs hatch. New storks are called chicks.
And that's a pretty typical term for baby birds too, is chicks. A lot of different baby birds are chicks.
The chicks grew up. Now it is fall. It gets cooler. The storks migrate. They fly a long way. It will be warmer.
Europe is much like North America. It's about the same latitude, and it will also get cold in the winter, so they go down to Africa for the winters.
It is spring. The storks migrate back. They will lay new eggs.
Here's a great map. I love it when they show you the map of where the storks live. Now, there are 8 different kinds of storks, and they live on every continent except for Antarctica. So the storks, as you can see, it's very interesting. They all migrate. So some will migrate from North America down to South America and back. Others will migrate from Europe to Africa and back. And they actually don't do well flying over water. So I thought that was kind of an interesting fact. So they like to migrate over land. They can actually travel over 12,000 miles when they migrate, which is crazy here.
If I was a bird, I would be scared to fly over water too. I would probably fly over a pond. That's it.
Yeah. So here's a few storks here. Those are the white storks that migrate from Europe to Africa. The storks depend on the warm air currents to push them. They don't fly over the seas or oceans because they need those warm currents. So there's just a little picture of the storks migrating over land. So that was just a quick summary of the white storks that live in actually both Africa and in Europe because they migrate. I wanted to go over another really fun animal, and that's the oxpecker. I wonder has anybody heard of an oxpecker?
I have.
So not only will they eat the bugs off of zebras, but also rhinoceroses and other animals in Africa. So the oxpecker only lives in Africa, and it's a huge help to the zebras and the rhinoceroses because it will eat all those little pesky bugs that are on the animals. So the oxpecker sees a lion, and it'll scream and fly off the zebra's back. So not only do they help with the bugs, they're also warning the zebra that an enemy is coming. The predator is coming. So the oxpecker lets the zebras know, run away, run away. And then the herd is safe. So they also act like a little bit of a guard dog, but they're a guard bird instead. Zebras and oxpeckers are animal partners. Each helps the other find food, shelter, or safety. The oxpeckers will eat the ticks and lice off the zebras. These parasites will suck the blood from zebras, and it can even make them sick. Look at that. It's a beautiful looking bird too. I love how what a red beak it has. So the oxpeckers fly up and cry out if they spy hyenas, cheetahs, or lions. The zebras will hear the cry and know to run away to safety. So they really are little guard dogs. Sitting right on the zebra's face. There's a zebra's face. There's the oxpecker. Oxpecker finds food because of zebras. The oxpeckers eat parasites off the zebras. Look at this one. There's kind of a funny look on its face. Can you see it, Alexis? The oxpecker sometimes pulls the hair off the zebras. And then they use that soft hair to line their nests. So it's like a soft little bedding. But they must not hurt the zebras, right? The oxpecker follows the zebras to water. The zebras dig holes in the dry African savanna to find water. The the oxpeckers also drink from these watering holes. They drink kind of at the same time. So the zebra will kind of carry the oxpecker to the water, and they're both to drink. They've got a lot of great teamwork going on. They really help each other. The zebras and oxpeckers are a team. They keep each other healthy and safe. That's pretty cool. And I bet the zebra's a little bit of a protector for the oxpecker as well. So this is kind of a fun book. So this is kind of going back to our emu when we learned about the emu. And this is about, can you tell the difference between the ostrich and the emu? There's some cool stuff in here too. Alexa and I were kind of just looking through this a little bit. So from head to toe, the ostriches and emus do look a lot alike. They're both very large birds, and like all birds, they have feathers, but neither of them can fly. So they have a lot of similarities and some differences.
Can anybody guess what this is?
Yeah, let's see if they can tell. Can you tell, is this ostrich feather or emu feather? Emu feathers really kind of look like hair, especially, I'll bring it up a little closer. Don't those really look like hair? Isn't that funny? Here's a picture over here of the difference of the ostrich and the emu. They really look a lot alike. They both have the long necks. They both have the long legs, but there are some very important differences. So here's a difference of their heads. Alexis, can you tell Brady which one's the ostrich, which one's the emu?
This one's the ostrich and that one's the emu.
And how can you tell them apart?
Because the ostrich shows pink skin on its neck and the emu has brown feathers.
That's right. So the ostrich doesn't really have any feather. Now some of the ostriches do, and there's a few little feathers, but it doesn't really have a lot of feathers on its neck or its head. And you can see that pink skin. It also has a pink beak, kind of like the flamingo, doesn't it? And then the emu is covered with feathers and even has a lot of extra feathers where it kind of looks like he's got a little haircut on top. And they both have very large eyes too and long necks. Here's some more differences. Which one's the ostrich? Which one's the emu?
Ostrich, emu.
Yeah. So some other differences are their feathers. So the dark feathers color the emu, and so they can kind of blend in with the grass. Now the toes are also very different. Can you tell us the difference of the toes, Alexis?
Emu, ostrich.
And what's the difference?
The emu has 3 toes and each of them have a toenail. The ostrich has 2 toes and only this toe has
a toenail. And do you remember why does just that one toe have a toenail like that?
Because that's the one it walks on. It runs on its tippy toes.
It does. So it runs on that one little sharp toe. It's like a sharp point, so it can go really, really fast. And then the emus, like most birds, will have the 3 toes. Here's a good one about the male and female ostrich. Look at the difference. There's another picture in another book that's probably a little bit better. But the male ostrich is black feathers, and the female has brown feathers because she is the one that sits on the nest. Now, who remembers what about the emu? Does the mommy or the daddy sit on the nest?
The daddy.
That's right.
So basically, here's the process. The emu mom just lays the eggs and like, see you later, honey. I'm going to have a date with my friends.
Yeah. So that's something that's very different between ostriches and emus. The ostrich actually, there's maybe 4 to 7 different female ostriches that will come and lay their eggs in one big nest. And then the one head female ostrich will actually sit on that nest and wait for the babies to hatch. Whereas the emus, one female lays eggs in a nest and then she just leaves. The daddy comes first, sits on the nest, and then she just leaves and says, oh, bye, see ya. Oh, it looks like Sarah's joining us again. Well, you're very welcome, Sarah. Thank you for being thankful for teaching. We've really enjoyed learning about all these creatures, and we're kind of coming to the end here. After this week, we'll have one more week of birds, and then we're going to move on to amphibians and reptiles, which we're going to kind of do a little different twist with them. We're going to do them kind of together to kind of compare a little bit better. So here we have all these little baby ostrich chicks. Look at them all. Aren't they cute? So there'll be about 15 in the nest. There's also about up to 15 of the emu eggs as well. Well, the emu wings are much smaller than the ostrich wings. So the ostrich, even though neither of them can fly, the ostrich will hold its wings out as kind of part of its mating dance and also to provide shade, whereas the emu has very short little stubby wings. Here's the female ostrich laying on the nest, and then there's the male emu laying on the nest. The ostrich has the white eggs, and the emu has those dark green eggs, but they're both very large. They're both, I think they get to like 20 chicken eggs is like the difference. One chicken egg will feed one person, and they were saying how the whole ostrich egg feeds like a whole group of kids. Ostriches, as we heard, live in Africa, just like we're talking about today. And who remembers, where did the emus live? Do you remember? What? Australia. So yes, they live on 2 totally different continents. All right, now we're going to get out your notebook. You're going to start taking some notes about the ostrich. I just have 2 short books here to read. And I just want you to gather some notes. And then we're really going to work on putting those notes together to make a paragraph. So let's see if you can figure out what page you're on. It looks like you're on page number 45. So if you're using the animal notebook, you'll be on page 45. So you can write at the top, you'll see birds. You can say birds of Africa. And of is spelled O-F. So birds of Africa. And we'd love to hear if anybody has chosen a bird to do your report on. We're starting to get some cardinal books for Alexis. She wanted to do the northern cardinal, which is good because we see one fairly often out our window. So up here at the top, you're going to put birds of Africa. And if you want to, you can mention the white stork. You can mention the oxpecker, the hornbill. If you've ever seen The Lion King and the Zazu, he's actually a hornbill, and which is a real bird that's in Africa. But we're going to focus on the ostrich today. So we're going to write lots of notes about the ostrich. It's spelled O-S-T-R-I-C-H, which is the largest bird in the world. And it's really amazing to think about how large they really are. They can be up to 8 to 9 feet tall. Now, our ceilings are only 8 feet tall in our house. So we were trying to picture that. We were trying to look up and see, okay, the top of the ceiling would be where the ostrich's head is.
I would have to look up like this and see the ostrich.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's actually
it'd be giant.
Tall.
And when you think about it, and then they can be up to 300 pounds. You know, they've got such a long, skinny neck, and even their legs probably don't weigh that much. So most of that weight is in their body. Oh, Sarah's picked out her bird. Sarah, we'd love to hear what birds you're going to do for your animal report. So now's your time. I want you to start writing notes. An ostrich egg is about as big as a medium-sized melon. So that'd almost be like the size of those personal watermelons, those seedless personal watermelons that are about that big. So picture that in your hand, like you're carrying one of those little personal watermelons. That's about the size of the ostrich egg. That's just crazy to think of how big they are. Well, what do the ostriches look like? Ostriches have a long neck and legs and are taller than most men. Really, and the females are probably a little shorter, but yeah, they're between 8 and 9 feet tall. So I don't know of anybody that tall. I know there have been people who have been that tall, but I've never met anyone.
Daddy's 6 feet, so he's
6'4".
6'4", so he's 2 feet off the ostrich.
Yeah. So even her daddy is pretty tall. He's 6'4". So, and the ostrich is quite a bit taller. Well, they do have small heads though, and guess how big their eyeballs are? Their eyeballs are as big as baseballs. That's huge. So that's another great fact to write down, is you could put that they have, so their heads are small. So their heads are maybe the size of, I don't know, it's hard to say. Maybe their heads are about the size of the egg, about that melon size. But then their eyeballs, big as baseballs. That's giant eyeballs. Well, the ostriches have long, fluffy feathers on their back and wings. The males will have the black and the white, and the females have the brown. So the typical ostrich that you'd see a picture of with the black and white feathers, that's a male, and the females are brown. And another thing I kind of noticed, I haven't read any documentation about it, but I just kind of noticed through pictures and video that the male feathers seem like they're a little bit more fluffy. They're just a little bit more fancy than the female feathers are. We know they live in Africa, but specifically they live right here in Central Africa and then down here in South Africa. And they live primarily in the grasslands, which grasslands are made up mostly of grass. That's right. So the grasslands. And most days it's pretty hot and dry. They also have a rainy season where it will rain a lot. Well, in the morning and the afternoons, that's when the ostriches will feed. And then on days when it gets really hot, they just go take a rest in the shade in the afternoon. Sometimes the ostriches will even rub their bodies in dust, and it helps kind of dry off their feathers. Oh, this one's funny. So this is when they're eating. Since they have such a small head and a skinny neck, look, you can actually see the food in their neck as they're eating. Isn't that goofy? So what do you think they eat?
Probably bugs.
Yeah, because they live in the grasslands, they do.
Other ostrich eggs.
Well, no, they don't eat other eggs, but they eat grasses, plants, and sometimes insects too, especially if the insect is on the grass or on the plant that they eat. But they primarily eat the plants and the grasses.
Maybe even humans. I'm just kidding.
unless it's an alien ostrich or something. So ostriches only swallow when they have a big lump of food in their throat. Isn't that goofy? So they'll just keep chewing and chewing and eating until there's this giant lump in their throat, and then they'll finally swallow. Well, like a lot of other birds, they also eat pebbles. They'll eat dirt and pebbles. Do you remember why they eat dirt and pebbles?
Forgot why, but the chickens at the farm do that too.
Yep, it's to help with their digestion. So they eat that so that the rocks and the little pebble, it's not really large rocks, but small pebbles and sand and dirt will be in their tummy.
Like rocks maybe this big.
Right, like smaller ones, and they'll be in their tummy, and it helps them digest their food. During the day, ostriches usually walk slowly. They hold their heads up high to look out for danger. Ostriches can't fly, but they sure can run fast. Do you remember how fast they can run when we read in our book?
I think it was 35.
Yeah, up to 35 miles an hour. So that's another good fact to write too, that they can run.
Practically ride that thing.
Yeah, well, I think people do ride ostriches. Well, you could write that they can run up to 35 miles per hour.
It's like leaping.
I know. Isn't that cool? And they're running right on their toes. You can kind of see in this picture a little bit how they're kind of running right on their tippy toes. You can see those little tippy toes there that they're running on, but they can run up to 35 miles an hour. And another good thing to write down is actually what they eat, that they like to eat grass, plants, and insects. But mostly grass and plants. It's the insects that are usually on the grass that they end up eating. Oh, look at this poor little tired mama. She just got done laying some eggs. So the females keep their eggs warm and safe during the day, and then the males will take over at night. So while the emu father actually stays on the eggs the whole time, the ostriches kind of work together. Mama takes over during the day, and then Dada takes over during the night. Now, when they're born, look how cute they are. They have like little stripes when they're born. And why do you think they have these brown stripes when they're born?
Probably to camouflage in the grass.
Exactly, because they live in the grasslands, those little brown stripes are perfect for camouflaging in the grasslands.
We should like incubate an ostrich egg. That would be cool if you could do that.
Yeah, you need a really big incubator for that.
Yeah.
So here's a few predators. I talked about the ostrich being able to run from its predators. Well, the mongoose is a predator. Cheetahs, lions, leopards, wild dogs, and hyenas all hunt the adult ostriches. The only way they can escape is by... What's this guy doing?
Running on their toes.
That's right, running away. They don't really have a defense. They have that one little nail that can't really do too much. They have a little tiny head. So their only defense is run as fast as you can. That's their best defense. Now, we read about how they do eat during the day. Well, they sleep at night. So that's called a diurnal creature, much like how we are, how we will eat and play and work during the day, and then at night we sleep. Same thing with the ostriches. And they actually sleep sitting on the ground. They're definitely too big to get up into a tree or anything, aren't they?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? They look really tired, don't they? I don't know if you saw that one. Look at this one here. She looks tired. She is worn out.
What are they supposed to do if, like, their babies do, like, if something's trying to eat their babies one day?
Well, I think because their babies probably are huddled underneath their wings at night. So I think that's why their babies are also in the care of mama or daddy. It looks like Alan and Raylan are enjoying the story. Well, I'm so glad you are. It's a lot of fun to learn about all these different birds around the world. I'm actually a little bit sad that we only have one more week of birds. I love birds. They're so fun. So we're glad you're enjoying. And here's a great diagram that we're actually going to mimic this diagram in a little bit when we draw our picture. So we'll go over that in a little bit. We just have one more short little book. And what I want you to do as you hear this book, I want to see if there's any new facts that you haven't written down yet that you can add to your fact list. And then we're going to try to put those together to make a paragraph. Ostriches are the largest birds in the world. I bet you wrote that fact down, didn't you? They're too heavy to fly. They use their long legs to run really fast though, up to 35 miles an hour. Ostriches live in the savannas in Africa. Oh, this one actually adds something different to their eating list. They eat seeds, leaves, and roots. Lizards and insects are also their food. So look at that little lizard that they're going to eat. And there's a grasshopper. So that's a little different than the other book. The other book just mentioned the grasses and plants. This one goes a little more specifically into seeds, leaves, and roots, but then also lizards and insects, which we did hear about the insects. Ostriches like to travel in flocks. They're not lonely birds. They like to be in a group, and their group is called a flock. So that should be a good fact to write down if you haven't written that down. An alpha pair lead the flock. Because the male and female are together, the whole flock will consist of male and female ostriches, and there's like it's kind of like a husband and wife leader of the group. Well, the females in the flock will lay eggs in one big nest. They're the largest bird eggs ever. There's the alpha pair. They'll keep the eggs warm until the chicks hatch. So basically, all the other females in the flock, they kind of get off duty. They just lay their egg, and then they get to go kind of party, while the alpha pair, male and female, will take over the nest, with the female being on the nest during the day and the male being on the nest during the night. Ostriches sometimes will lie in the sand to hide from the predators. You can see it there. It's definitely not sleeping in that one. Ooh, and look at really see the feathers while this one's running. This one's running from a cheetah. And that's their only defense. They have to run from predators if they can't hide. Run, ostrich, run! If you look really closely, you can kind of see those tippy toes. So we're going to take these facts and kind of put them into a sentence. The ostrich is the biggest bird with the biggest egg. A lot of times when you're doing your paragraph, you want to start off with a wow sentence. And since they are the biggest bird with the biggest egg, that might be a good way. So you could start off by saying, the ostrich is the biggest bird in the world, period. They can be 8 to 9 feet, or you can say up to 9 feet, and up to 300 pounds, exclamation point, right? Because that's something that's pretty exciting. It will lay the biggest egg in the world, period. The ostrich egg is the size of a melon, period. And that could kind of be the first paragraph of your report. And then you could also talk about how all the female ostriches will lay their eggs in one nest. So that'd be some other facts. So that'd be your second paragraph. And then let's say you'd want to put together what they want to eat. You could even put the group that is a flock and then what they eat together. You could say a group of ostriches is called a flock. The ostriches in their flock will eat plants, seeds, roots, bugs, and even lizards. You want to end off with a conclusive paragraph, which is just you're concluding what you've learned. You can say, the ostrich is such an interesting bird. Can you believe that its eyes are the size of a baseball? ? And you can actually end with a question. So you want to start it off kind of exciting and then leave off even a little bit where people maybe want to learn more about what you've shared with them. Those are just a few little examples and little helps with using those facts that you've written down and putting them into a paragraph so you can write research reports, because that's part of what our project is about too, is not only learning all these fun facts, but then also putting them together to make a research report, because this is kind of like your first age where you're doing your research report. So I'm going to flip over our camera here. I got to move the table. We got all these books in the way right now. And we are going to draw an ostrich. Alexis, she's got her animal notebook. So she got the bird facts over here. She has her white paper over here. I'm just using a solid piece of paper. And I'm going to use this book here as my example for my diagram of the ostrich. So we'll kind of go over it a little bit before we draw. So of course it's got a smaller head, but larger eyes, a pink beak. And then this one kind of shows a grayish neck, but a lot of times they will have a pink neck. Has its leg, pretty strong leg, 2 toes, one small one and one large toe with a nail. The feathers all over, of course. It has a wing, and they are actually rather large wings. So we're going to go ahead and draw this ostrich on our paper here. So let's start off by drawing its small head. So again, it doesn't have very big of a head. So I'm going to draw its head, but then I want to draw some big eyes. Kind of one on this side and one on this side. And its pink beak. And remember how most birds, their nostrils are towards the base of their beak. It was that kiwi that actually had, I'm going to give mine some eyelashes. And then we're going to draw a long neck. And if anybody's watched Fantasia, there's a funny part about dancing. Yep, the ostriches are actually ballerinas that are kind of fun. So now it has a fairly large body because most of its weight is in its body. And it's kind of like a long bean oval. We're going to kind of bring it up here and then bring it down here. And we're going to let its kind of little tail feathers kind of go. Oh, it looks like I'm off the screen here. There we go. I'll move it up a little bit. Ostrich is so big it can't fit it on the screen. So those are little whitetail. And then we're going to draw its wing here. And they do have rather large wings. For a bird who can't fly, it really does have a large wing. So there's its large wing. There's all of its beautiful feathers. And then we want to draw some pretty strong legs. So we're going to give a little bit of a muscle to the leg there. And their legs also bend backwards, like a lot of birds do. So instead of their knee bending forward, their knee bends, or I should say, instead of their knee bending back, their knee bends forward. And then they've got that one, I'll try to get a little closer here, the large toe. Remember, there are only two toes, a small toe here and a larger toe here, and then that large toe has a nail. Maybe not quite as sharp as I drew it. I probably exaggerated that a little bit. But at least you can kind of see, yeah, that it's definitely two toes. And we'll draw the one smaller toe and the one larger toe. Give it some strong. There we go. And so there's our ostrich. We're just going to, let me give it its nail on this one too. So there's our ostrich here. We're going to label our ostrich. We'll write ostrich up at the top. So if you remember, ostrich is spelled O-S-T-R-I-C-H. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not even on the screen here. There we go. Ostrich. O-S-T-R-I-C-H. And then we're going to go ahead and just label some things. We're going to point to the eyes. And we're going to write, it looks like this is not, oh, there, it's not, now it's focused, that they have baseball, which is B-A-S-E-B-A-L, baseball size eyes. Let's go ahead and label their pink beak. So that's not many birds have a pink beak. Pink beak. And we'll label long neck, which is L-O-N-G, long neck, N-E-C-K. And we'll label their wing, because even though they cannot fly, all birds have wings. And I want to label their toes, how they only have two toes. So I'm going to do kind of like a double arrow. One arrow here, one arrow there, kind of connect them together, because I think they're the only bird with two toes. And just one nail even. So there we have it. There we have our ostrich with his baseball-sized eyes, pink beak, long neck, the wing, and two toes. Very good. Alexis, oh, yours looks great, Alexis. Hers looks like a happy little ostrich too. Oh, I love that. Very nice. Well, we thank you so much for joining us to learn all about the ostriches. And we hope you had fun, and we hope you learned a little bit more on how to take those facts and turn them into a paragraph so you can write your own research report. Well, we'll see you next week when we have our last week, our South American birds. Bye, everybody. Flip it over. Oh, man. Oh, there we go.